Okay. Councillor Harkin?
Thank you, Mayor. Can I take the motion as read, please?
Yeah. Do I have a seconder, please, for the motion? Councillor Donnelly?
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Look, I think it's a fantastic thing that the entire Foyle Metro fleet is going to be going electric. There's not many cities in Ireland, even across Europe, that have electric buses in that scale. I think it tells us that electric public buses right across the island is possible. And I think that that very much fits with our ambitions in terms of tackling the climate crisis, encouraging people to get out of cars, to reduce road congestion. And obviously, we're still in the middle of a cost of living crisis. So cheap public travel, I think, can benefit us in so many ways. So this is an opportunity, I think, for us, to seize this opportunity, really, to encourage more public transport use. I don't think that that's going to happen automatically. And I think we have to, as a council, try to take the lead on bringing together TransLink, DFI, residents groups, trade unions, to really think through how do we encourage people to get on the bus, and how do we utilise this opportunity, because it is a good thing to do that. There are all sorts of gaps when it comes to public transportation across the district. I mean, I've talked to bus drivers, and they've basically mapped out where there should be more buses, where there are no buses, where there's no bus shelters. I mean, I think we hear this sort of stuff from residents as well, and from bus users. So I think we have to, this is an opportunity now, I think, for us to try and pull people together in the task force and think through how do we incentivise public transport use. I mean, even thinking about us as a council, there's 1,000 employees. How would we encourage more people that work for the council to get on the bus? There's probably things that we need to do in order to incentivise that and to make it happen. But I think, look, electric transportation is the direction we want to go in. We want to see our bus network expanded. If it's expanded on an electric basis, that's even better. We want to see our rail expanded. I think that this would allow us to cut down on social isolation. It would allow us to, I think it would help with air quality, which we know is a big issue here in the district. And, I think that there's a lot of possible positives out of this, but I think it really means we have to seize the opportunity and do it as quickly as we can, working with, everybody else that would be involved. Thank you.
Good, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for bringing the motion to Council. It's a motion that we're fully supportive of. I think we have had deputations from TransLink in the past and the council highlighting the importance of electrification of their fleet, and it's certainly very welcome that the Foyle Metro fleet is to become the first in the north that's fully electric, and that's a welcome step, and it's something that the council have endorsed quite a lot in the past, but there's a lot more that can be done. They encourage and incentivize people to use public transport. So if a task force is something that can help advance that, then it's something that we fully support. We recognise, and I know it's become a common theme in quite a lot of issues. They fully realise ambitions that. And particularly in relation to public transport and addressing the challenges that TransLink are facing. We do need an executive, we need a minister. We need the support of government departments. But in the absence of that, council should explore everything that we can do. One of the things that we are doing, and it was discussed in some detail in the capital working group earlier in the week is around the city deal and the potential for us to encourage public transport within the city centre here in Derry, and create more opportunities for public transport and the introduction of bus lanes and that. So there's initiatives that council are involved in. But we can always look to see what more we can do. And if the outworkings of this motion is to explore that even further, then it's on that. And for us in Sinn Féin, we're fully committed to do so. We support the motion that's in front of us, and thank Councillor Harkin for bringing it.
Thank you, Mayor. I welcome this motion today in relation to the Foyle Metro bus fleet. It's a positive step by TransLink to lead the way and become one of the first cities in the UK and Ireland to have a zero-emission bus service. The £32 million investment is a clear commitment to the North West and our transport infrastructure. We now need to ensure that we utilise the investment in the best possible way and encourage more people to use our bus services. Moving to zero emissions alone will not increase passengers significantly. Additional routes and improved timings will need to be managed going forward to ensure that more and more citizens have access to public transport. As a councillor for the Faughan ward, I have been making the case for additional services throughout our rural communities. I believe that a bus lane from Eglinton to the Waterside can be achieved, and it would make a significant difference to the people of Eglinton, Strathfoyle, Maydown and the new properties planned for Ballyowen, linking in with the airport and the North West Transport Hub. I will continue to work with TransLink going forward to make this a reality. I am aware that there was a stakeholder meeting last week at the North West Transport Hub involving TransLink, Council, PSNI, the Londonderry Chamber of Commerce and MLAs to look at the strategic overview of TransLink in the North West across rail and bus services. I would welcome further collaboration between Council and TransLink to further enhance public transport use, maximise the availability of bus shelters across our communities and to improve signage and awareness of what is available. On behalf of the DUP, we're thankful for the motion and we will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Harkin for proposing this particular motion, which we will be supporting. Like others, we welcome the fact that the entire Foyle Metro fleet will be going electric, and I think we also need to acknowledge that TransLink are playing their role in trying to make public transport more accessible and more attractive to the public here across Derry and Strabane. When you look at they're going contactless at the moment, which is something, again, which will hopefully encourage people to get out of the car and use a bus. We fully support the idea and the sentiment of this motion, where it's talking about bringing people together to try and look at our public transport network across the city to try and make it more accessible, more attractive to the public. I have currently lobbied for more public transport in and around the Skeg area, where it's the fastest growing particular area in this council area, but it's not served as well with public transport as what other areas might be. So it's issues like that we would like to see coming out of any further engagement. But we think it's also going to take a mind change from the public to get out of the car and on public transport. We believe that council and other stakeholders have a role to play in assisting and encouraging people to make that change. And where we can, we should be supporting TransLink with incentives and making sure that we're there to encourage people and to show the benefits, not only for the city and district in terms of the climate emergency, but in terms of trying to get people out of the car and into the public transport. We're definitely supportive of it. Thank you.
All right, just going to go to Councillor Fleming now, who's online.
Thank you, Patricia. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Well, echoing much of what has already been said, definitely welcome closer collaboration between Council and TransLink to address any shortcomings or shortfalls in bus coverage throughout the district. As far as my own constituency goes in Fahan, multiple members of the public in Clodagh have raised concerns with me that the 212 bus between Derry and Belfast, some have raised concerns that Clodagh itself is not being adequately covered by that bus. So certainly, as part of any consultation between TransLink and this council, I would certainly like that to be brought up and as part of that consultation. Aside from that, echoing much of what has already been said, I'm fully supportive of this motion.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank Councillor Harkin for a very laudable motion. I do wish to make an amendment or propose an amendment. In the second paragraph, third line, developing infrastructure such as, and I'm putting in there park and ride facilities, bus lanes, etc. If I have a seconder for that amendment.
I'll second it.
Briefly on that then, Mayor, obviously many of us, don't live on streets adjacent to bus routes, etc. So to have a park and ride facility for those of us coming into the city from the rest of the district, indeed the rest of Northern Ireland, indeed Donegal, to have that facility whereby you can park up the car at a park and ride facility adjacent to a bus lane and utilise the public transport system and reduce the car usage within the streets within the city would be useful, and that's the pure logic of that amendment. Thank you, Mayor.
Right, there is an amendment. I've heard no dissenting voices, so can I just check it that the amendment is accepted? Yes. And we will go now to the substantive motion, and again, no dissenting voices, so we can take that as read, yeah? Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Councillor Harkin, can you sum up before?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, everybody, for their support. I think that I look forward to working with TransLink, DFA, community organisations, trade unions, and public transport campaigners in the task force to try and take this opportunity.
So just as before, I don't think there was any dissenting voices, so we can take that motion as read. Okay. Move on now to our second motion, and that's Councillor Harkin again, yeah.
Mayor, can I ask to make a small amendment to the motion where it says Department of Infrastructure? Can we change that to Department for Infrastructure in the opening line? Thank you. Can I take the motion as read? Thank you, Councillor Barr. Look, the Department for Infrastructure is presently carrying out a consultation, a 12-week consultation that runs from the start of June to August 24th. And I think it'll have a big impact on our aspirations for increasing public transportation use. It'll have an impact on our aspirations around trying to tackle the climate crisis, cost of living crisis, and air quality. In the consultation, there's a number of good proposals that are positive that I think as a council we should back. But the main proposal in the consultation, the one that is getting most attention, and I think the one that is driving the consultation, is the proposal to change the eligibility age for free public travel here across the north. So presently, you get a smart pass when you're 60 years old, and the proposal is to move that up to 64, 65. And I think just for the record, Scotland and Wales have a smart pass that starts at 60. So it's not the case that this is something that's happening everywhere. This was something that was introduced by the Tories in England, and it was introduced by Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael in the south. Look, I went to the consultation that was held here in Derry, and I have to say that every single person that attended, and it wasn't a well-advertised event, and it was a small number of people, but every single person that was there opposed the proposal to change the eligibility age. And people had all sorts of reasons for it. One woman that was there was talking about, look, a lot of people are on low wages, and people actually calculate in, who are still working at 60 years of age, calculate in how they're going to make a bit of a saving when they start getting free public transportation use. So that I think as a council, we have to send a very strong message that we oppose this, that it will be regressive. There's other parts to the consultation I think we should back. There's been a long-standing campaign to increase the half fare for some people with a disability who are unable to drive to a full fare, and they also allow for a companion for people who are unable to travel alone. I think that's a positive change that we should back. Consultation also proposes making it easier for asylum seekers to access public travel and victims of human trafficking. So there's positive things. Part of my concern as well, and I don't know, this may have been unintentional by the department, but if you take away the smart passes for people who are 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, and you're seen then to be giving it to people who just arrive here, I think that they are potentially setting up vulnerable groups to be targeted. I was just at a protest in Portrush when fascists are talking about migrants and scapegoating them. So I think that this is, I think that the Department for Infrastructure has made a big blunder here. And I think that we have to oppose the eligibility age change and support the positive proposals. And I think we need to send that message as a council to the DFA. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor, and on behalf of Sinn Féin, we are content to support the motion, and thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing it forward. I think the onus is on every one of us to be encouraging people to respond to the consultation. If we don't do that, and we've had an extended conversation about responses to consultations today, if we don't do that, then those views aren't going to be heard. So every one of us needs to be encouraging every citizen that uses and maybe that wants to use public transport in the future to be responding and giving their opposition to the age change and their support to the other elements of the consultation that are positive. So just we are in support of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Harkin, for the motion. Our party has responded to the concessionary fares consultation and registered our full and clear rejection of any move to further reduce the current concessionary fare scheme across the structure in Northern Ireland. As the party who introduced the Smart Pass scheme, we are acutely aware of the benefits of the scheme for our older people and those living in rural communities. I would urge all parties and individuals who have a view on this to respond to the consultation. In recent years, we have seen various increases in fares across public transport. While I acknowledge that financial pressures do exist, we need to incentivise people to use public transport. The more people who use our bus and rail services, the more sustainable the services become, and the greater impact that it will have on road usage and our environment. As with the previous motion going forward, I would like to see more collaboration between all interested parties to encourage our communities to use public transport. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farrell, and then Councillor Barr.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Councillor Harkin, for the proposal. The SLP support the proposal, and we don't seek any amendment whatsoever. Whilst we recognise that there are elements within the consultation that would result in benefits for people right across society, the reality is that this is a cost-saving exercise from the Department for Infrastructure. We are completely opposed to any movement in the qualifying age for a smart pass. People are entitled to this when they reach the age of 60, and they should remain entitled to this when they reach the age of 60. And any move to limit the use of smart passes to off-peak travel or bus services only should be rejected completely. So every department across the north is facing massive budget pressures, and this is a cost-saving exercise within the Department for Infrastructure. And it's not the only one. People will be aware that there's proposals to turn off all the streetlights between January and March. There's proposals to have no gritting at all this winter, and there's proposals to just do emergency repairs and road maintenance, and they are all equally disgraceful. They should be condemned and opposed at every opportunity. But I'm going to go here. It's difficult to listen to the DUP and say that they reject this. This is happening for three reasons. It's happening because the DUP have not accepted the outcome of this election. It's happening because you refuse to form a government, and it's really difficult to listen to the fact that the DUP are not accepting any responsibility for all these cuts across all sections of society, across every department in the north that is impacting people right across the city and district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Harkin for bringing this motion. Anything we can do to combat social exclusion to help those vulnerable and elderly have difficulty accessing public amenities and health centres, etc., is a no-brainer, and I'm more than happy to endorse this motion. Thank you.
Declaration of interest.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks again, everybody, for their support. And I'm glad to hear that there's such a strong response from all parties and independents as well to this consultation. And I think that that's what's going to be needed for the department to back down on this particular proposal. Look, I think that Councillor Farrell mentioned the DUP, and it is hard to listen to given that they're holding up government. And that if government was up, we would want this proposal not to be coming forward at all. But the reality is this is a long-standing proposal. This proposal existed when Stormont was up and running. And I think, unfortunately, there is an attempt now to exploit the fact that government is down to try and ram this through. I don't think that the proposal, while the proposal to turn off lights for 3 months, starting in January to March, is up on the DFI website, I don't think that they're actually planning to do it. I think that they're trying to terrify us, but I do think that they are trying to do this one. I do think if there isn't a response to this consultation, that the age of eligibility would go up, and the justification would be, sure, the age of retirement is going up, and people are working longer, people are living longer, therefore we can't afford this. And I think that we're in a context where, look, people are struggling, older people are struggling, people have worked all their lives and they've paid their taxes. This is one of the things that you get and that you look forward to when you're turning 60. We want to increase public transportation use. And taking this away from people right now will only undermine that. So I think that in addition to this message coming from the council, I would encourage, as Councillor McGinley said, for people to read through the consultation. The consultation itself, the way it's worded, is designed to bring back a certain justification or legitimise some type of cuts or change the eligibility. And as Councillor Farrell said, look, it's unacceptable as well to kind of like the savings involved in denying people, smart pass users, the right to use rail is very small. The savings involved in telling people that you can only use it when during off peak is very, very small, and it'll have longer term. We'll lose out on a longer term basis if we follow through on that. So thank you.
So I could take it that's unanimous then, yeah? Okay, we'll move on to the next motion, and that is Councillor Boggs.
Thanks, Mayor. Can I take the motion as read, please?
Yeah. Yep. Seconder, please. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks to the councillor for seconding it. I won't have to explain the Sperrin councillors, but for anybody outside of the beautiful Sperrin, Murlock is just a couple of miles outside of Glenmornan, which is just a couple of miles outside of Strabane. But I'm sure people have heard long-running commentary on Murlock and how we haven't developed it, we haven't invested in it, because of a plethora of reasons. Whether that be because of that it doesn't directly sit under the remit of council. It is an inland fishery maintained by DAERA, but there are also other complexities on around who owns land around it and access and all the rest. Up until now, and obviously as a new councillor, I haven't been involved in anything that has went on before, but there has been a reluctance, I think, for people to work together for the benefit of Murlock and for the benefit of that community that it serves. And that's what I'm asking people to support in this motion, is that we set up a working group to assist local sporting organisations and the community. I was delighted 2 weeks ago, just after the election, to meet with the Strabane Triathlon Club, who use Murlock now on a regular basis weekly for cold water swimming, to mark the first anniversary of them being set up. And basically, the groups that want to use Murlock, their asks aren't big. They want a proper surface on it. And I'm glad to say that we've, elected reps have received confirmation from DAERA that the asphalt chippings that are going to resurface Murlock, the tender has went out, and hopefully within the next couple of months we'll see that done. They want to be able to use the water at Murlock, which again DAERA have agreed to, and there are groups using it for that purpose. But there's so much more potential that we could have at Murlock. When you look at other community facilities, whether it's a walkway, whether it's for water sports, the benefits to it, particularly after COVID, the benefits of having those kind of areas within our communities are immense. There's a Gaelic club there that used it during COVID to fundraise for the hospital. There are groups now looking to use it for a 10-mile challenge in September. But the problems that are facing Murlock at the minute are impacting on those groups being able to have any kind of access to it, because unless the resurfacing is done by September, the 10-mile challenge that has been organised by a community group just won't go ahead for health and safety reasons. I understand, and we've talked about it at length, and I said at one of the other meetings, I feel like every time I come in here, I just complain about cuts since I was elected. But anyway, some councillors are nodding their head that they've been doing it for years. But basically what I'm asking is that we don't promise the public that in 2 years they're going to be walking around a fantastic community facility that has a tarmac surface and there's bungee jumps at the side of it and all the rest. But what I am asking for in this motion is that we leave the politics aside from it. It's not about point scoring. It's not about who got the asphalt chippings and who got the hedgerows put back and who got the litter picked, even though that's another issue altogether.
Councillor Boggs.
I'm going to come to an end, Mayor. What I'm asking is that we support this motion, but that from in the working group, that's what it is. It's councillors and elected representatives working together with all the departments that are intertwined and amongst Murlock. So I'm asking people for support for the motion. Garmogat.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this motion and thank Councillor Boggs for bringing it. This has been an issue which has received a lot of air over the years, but never receives the attention for the outcome it merits. Murlock is one of the potential jewels in the crown in the Sperrin Ward, a ward that is sadly lacking in areas of relaxation and leisure. And yet here we have at our doorstep an untapped natural resource which could satisfy some of the area's needs. Murdoch has had on numerous occasions money wasted in cosmetic upgrades. It's going to be resurfaced now again, but on previous occasions, 6 months down the line, it was as bad as ever again. But I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. Council needs to step outside the city boundaries and start paying some attention to the rural areas in the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Just again, thanks to Councillor Boggs for raising this. This is a fantastic natural resource in Murlock for anybody that's been there. They'll know what it's like. For anybody that hasn't been out there, I'd encourage them to go out and just have a look at this very beautiful, rural and very scenic area. It's a location and an area that is there for everyone to use. It's really very popular, and investment will, of course, increase use. Well, obviously, the working group will get set up in this progress, and please also use this as an opportunity to improve water safety in the area as well. My argument.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me in, and I was glad to second that motion from Councillor Boggs, and it's a very timely motion brought forward. It does baffle me how an area like Murlock is sitting in the state it's in. And it proves just how popular Murlock is, that in the short space of time it has to be resurfaced once again because of the amount of people that visit that quite daily. As Councillor Boggs rightly says, you know, the Strand Triathlon Club were also in contact with ourselves about calling out, but unfortunately I couldn't get out to the evening that they invited us out because my other job was called out on. But the pictures that they sent through, which is actually council's responsibility of the rubbish, the bins overflowing and things like that. So if the council could pay a bit more attention to emptying the bins quite more often, and also the exploration when we get to the working group of reinstating the toilets out there. A lot of people, there's no toilet facilities; they're closed. But it does. I'll be looking forward to this working group being set up, and as Councillor Boggs and other speakers rightly says, to getting everyone around the table and seeing exactly what can be done to bring this area up to the standard that is needed. Thank you, Mayor.
No more speakers, so
Mayor, I'm in the chat box, Alderman Kerrigan.
apologies, Alderman Kerrigan. I'll take you now and then Alderman Hussey. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Mayor, we're content enough there to support the setting up of a working group. And again, Murlock is one of those resources which are within the council and you know, one of those natural resources which should be supported and maintained. But the only thing I would just caution, I've no issue with setting up the working group and maybe council taking the lead on it, but I would have issue with council aren't under ownership of that. I think the lion's share of the responsibility falls on their DAERA. And again, as has been touched upon there, the like of the toilet blocks, and again, that is a thing that has been continually brought up in regards to public toilets and across the district, particularly in the rural area. That batch are not within council's control. Well, council maybe had closed them, but they're DAERA's responsibility for maintenance and that. So again, I've no issue with taking the lead on it. But again, it's got to be the case that we're not caught footing the bill. We have enough of our own properties and sites to maintain, and you know what, I don't want us to be taking on more items ourselves. Just, you know, as I say, I would love to see that facility improved. And again, there are issues has been touched upon, the safety concerns there in regards to the water. And again, there has been, as members have stated, there have been various talks about resurfacing there over the years, and you can find out various parts with the former Councillor Kelly in regards to the work that's been taken on there. But no, support this in regards to pushing this forward. And there are other facilities that, you know, if they did have a path around them, you know, there are other ones there within the boundaries. I mean, I'm thinking in our own area, sharing with Fermanagh, Loch Lee. You know, there's a, you know, if you're man enough to go out a dander around it, you know, it's a bit of a rougher path. I think it's bad at Murlock. It's worse up there and it's harder to get to. But and that's as a boundary between ourselves and Fermanagh. But there are other facilities as well. But no, content enough support to support the setting up of the working group, but just have concerns that we don't take on a large financial risk in regards to it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I suppose my knowledge of Murlock first started with Councillor John Gallagher many years ago, and it is something that is deserving of attention. I agree with Councillor or Alderman Kerrigan. It is not something that council should take on themselves, but certainly be the catalyst of bringing together the groups who have a knowledge and an input into that overall project, because that's what it is. It's a project. It's not just a case of, we'll get the road there and we'll, and then all of a sudden people are coming and there's no toilets. It's a combined effort by all of those responsible. And from an Ulster Union's perspective, although we have no representation in Spurn, certainly there's no problem with the idea of getting together a group of that nature on what is an apolitical issue and, for the good of everyone in that area. Thank you, Chair, or Mayor.
Thank you. And if you'd like to sum up.
Just very briefly, Mayor, just to go back to what Alderman Kerrigan had said and what others have alluded to, that is the very essence of the motion, is that this isn't council's responsibility, but that this working group for the first time gets everybody, all interested parties around the table and singing off the same hymn sheet. As Alderman Hussey has says, it is a long-term project. I think the time for sticking plasters and resurfacing, everybody clapping their hands and shouting with glee, I think that needs to stop. We need to sit down around the table and plan out what is the future for Murlock and exactly how do we get there. So thank you very much to everybody who has spoken in support. Garmugget.
Mayor, I have my name down there. Alan Breslin.
Kerrigan, we've summed up here. Oh, sorry, go ahead with summed up. Sorry, Alderman Breslin, I am just seeing your name here, but we have summed up now, so unfortunately.
That's okay then.
Okay, thank you. Look, again, I think that has been received positively by everyone, so we'll just take that as read. Thank you. We'll move on now to the next motion, and that's Councillor Leona Bauer to move. And do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a slight amendment on the motion. It's left.
So they say motion is to move forward first.
Right.
Just and she can.
Okay.
Is it?
Is there an amendment? Yeah, go ahead.
It's okay.
Your amendment, and then we need a seconder then, okay? All right, what do we hear the amendment?
Yeah, the amendment is up there.
Okay,
right?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And as we all know, public transport is key to the civic and economic life connectivity of our city and district. And this is an issue that this council has engaged with for several years and in many occasions. We will all be rightfully delighted that phase 2 of the A6 road project is finally complete and, of course, heartened by the recent update of bus and rail services for Sunday's GAA quarterfinal as well. However, the people we represent are telling us all the same things. The road is making progress, but journey times by public transport aren't. It is hugely disappointing that we are still lacking a direct service from Derry to Belfast or from Dublin to Derry. And I remember when I used to use a bus, there used to be a direct bus from Derry before lockdown to Belfast, and it never stopped any other areas to be connected. At present, the quickest journey time on the 212 bus service is 2 hours and 2.5 and 15 minutes by train. Public transport commuters have also faced a 5-year delay and disruption in their journey while the A6 upgrade was ongoing. So the lack of improvement is a serious salt into the wounds. For the city, this is about our economic potential. How are we supposed to be a region where investors can come and invest in our connectivity is so poor? How are our young people supposed to think of our campus when it comes to filling out their UCAS forms if they see no way to get here reliably during the week and early to get into their classes? And how are our tourists supposed to spend time here if we cannot assure them of fast and reliable transport between the international gateways of Dublin and Derry, or indeed between the north biggest city and the second city? And how are our businesses supposed to develop a regional offering? We are the North second city, and that must be reflected in the infrastructure investment in this region. If it is not, then the truth is that we will continue to be a peripheral region that is starved of the jobs and are so badly needed. We will also continue to fall further behind on dealing with the climate crisis if we do not reduce the number of cars on our roads and increase public transport. And given the fact that every single one of us here is advocating for a green economy, environmental sustainability, and enhanced connectivity, direct services should be considered as a priority. And I hope that when an executive is restored in Stormont, that this is from day one, the priority of the First Minister or the Minister for Infrastructure will be to look at direct services and improving our infrastructure in this city. But in the meantime, I think Council can do whatever it can to help address this challenge. And that means making clear to our to support our TransLink of new direct bus services, as well as lobbying the Department for Infrastructure to provide the necessary funding to establish these routes. We need to make investment in our economy.
Councillor Barr, you've really gone over, so I'll let you finish off there.
I'll finish up in 3 seconds. So we need to make investment into our economy in this city, which has been left behind for far too long. That starts with infrastructure and building the conditions necessary for a thriving city and region. So I hope everybody here will support this motion. Thank you.
Jackson.
Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Sina Barr for bringing the motion. We support the motion. There's, in relation to the A6 is a long-awaited transport route. It's a strategic transport or piece of transport infrastructure, and it has increased journey times. It has, and it will support the local economy here in the Northwest. There's no doubt about that. But I note that within the motion, it expresses concern that despite the delivery of this project, that public transport along the routes, public transport times haven't been reduced. And we accept that, but and I'm picking up on Councillor Fleming's point in an earlier motion. The transport times haven't been reduced because the current bus services, whether it's the second city or the fourth largest city, it's what we can all agree on is that we need to increase connectivity between sort of large centres of population and on the island, and that's going to be key for meeting our pledges in terms of the climate emergency and reducing carbon footprint. But it's going to be key in terms of delivering and meeting our economic potential. But we can't ignore our rural communities. The people of Claudy rely on the 212 services, which was identified by Councillor Fleming. the people in Strabane and the Tyrone end of our city and district rely on the service bus to Dublin. It's so I note that within the report, it's they request an additional service, an additional direct service, and that's something that we can support. But we have to highlight the importance of the existing routes and how the existing routes continue to serve our rural and rural
Councillor
council
Jackson,
area.
if you just want to
Yeah,
finish.
no, just in relation to that, I'll finish up there, Mayor. Thank you. We're content to support the motion on the caveat that this is an additional service building on the existing service, and just we will particularly welcome the late amendment, given on the back of our party's been continuously calling on TransLink. Padraig Delargy, MLA, has been calling on TransLink to provide services for major events throughout, for people coming to our city and for people attending events outside of our city. Thank you.
I have no more speakers on my list.
Mayor, Alderman Kerrigan on the chat box, sorry.
I'll bring you on now, Alderman Kerrigan, and then Councillor Harkin. Go
Well,
ahead.
I can give way to Councillor Harkin if he wants, but I'm content. Whatever, I'll come on. Thank you, Mayor. No, Mayor.
Go you ahead now, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mayor. To be fair, I would have to. Councillor Jackson has beat me to the mark there in regards to it. I did have issues there. It is we do welcome the completion of phase 2 of the A6 road, and it is welcome. And again, you know the issue is there. It's the rural population there, as I see, and Councillor Jackson touched on it himself. It's the additional. It is the fact that it is an additional service we're looking for, but we can't disregard those rural dwellers, because if you're saying you want a direct route from the city to Belfast or the city to Dublin or vice versa, you know, you're still then having to force that rural population to get into the city. And again, what time flight have they got? You know, and so as to say, it's that difficulty that I see with it. But on the basis that it is an additional service, but again, will that be taken away from some of the current service? You know, I do have concerns with it there, but as I say, it's outside of our remit there. We'll not be the ones making the decision. We can lobby for it, and again, we will be content enough to support the lobbying of it. But again, it's the rural dwellers and what facilities. I mean, it's the transport. Yes, there is that needed for the longer routes, and has been stated as Councillor Bar has pushed. But it's still. It's the rural dwellers. It's trying to, if you're trying to seriously cut out the use of vehicles there, use of cars, and put more onto public transport, I think we need a better service there from the like of Castleberg to the city. There's no direct route from Castleberg to London. You know, I mean, I was looking through timetables there. For me, if I had wanted to take public transport to get down to that meeting, it would have involved quite a bit of dandering on foot, and it would have left me leaving at 10 o'clock this morning. And I still would have had to drive to the town before then, getting a bus then to Abercorn Square and walking from there to the bus shelter and getting a bus to the bus shelter, a bus centre and the city, and walking across the Peace Bridge to the Guildhall. So, you know, you'd been away in good time. So as I say, we have to be mindful that needs improved as well as pushing for this. But thank you very much, Mayor, for allowing me in.
God, I was well tired listening to you there, but Councillor Harkin.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, and People Before Profit are happy to support Councillor Barr's proposal. We think it builds on the other proposals that we've had at the meeting to improve our public transportation system and to protect it and to expand it. And look, as other speakers have said, our rural network is underserved, and we need to increase and extend public transportation if we're really going to ramp up public transportation use in terms of meeting all the ambitions and aspirations we have. It has to be rural, and that has to be linked in. So we have to have an overarching plan. It is true as well. Look, we have an improved road, and there should be faster bus bus should get from Derry to Belfast now much faster, and that should be a bit of a payoff for all them people who have been frustrated at the length of the bus travel. So I think we want to urge TransLink to try and figure that out. And in terms of Derry and Derry and Dublin, look, we want to see improved services right across the island, and maybe we can ask the Irish government to invest directly into TransLink, given that they are now committed to investing directly in the Ulster University and McGee and in the medical places. If Stormont can't do it, maybe the Irish government can do it.
Okay, I have no more indicated speakers. Would you like to sum up?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to everyone who have supported this motion. I think what is required is really good management by TransLink. I think several non-stop buses in the morning or in the evening, early evening, will really facilitate those who would want to use buses and reduce private cars on the road. Just to reassure our rural councillors, this is just an addition. It's not about starving the rural areas with connectivity. In fact, I think they should be getting also some direct buses. There will be no problem, Claudie getting a bus that doesn't have to come from Derry. You can start from Claudie to Belfast, and they can get a direct bus for them to cut short journeys for people. So it's all about improved connectivity, allowing our city to grow its own economy. And just to sum up, we would have tourists who will come to Belfast from Dublin and stay for a week in Belfast and may want just a day trip. If that is 5 hours, would you come to Derry? No, you won't. You will stay in Belfast and spend a whole day there. So we need to cut those journeys to really encourage more people to come to our city and district. So thank you very much.
Okay. And I think we can just take that as read too. Look, folks, we have two options here. It's just after 6 o'clock. We have two motions left. We can either continue on and there's another wee couple of bits of business, or we can reconvene tomorrow.
What time does the bus leave at?
Either way, I have an engagement downstairs at 6 o'clock. So it's either Deputy R comes up if we agree to. But first of all, look, what do we want to do? Can I get some kind of consensus here? We've a keep going from this side. Rattle on. Okay, everybody okay. So, right. You're in the hot seat now, Jason. See why I give you that cruise this morning? You can sit up here now. Oh.
Right, well, no messing around. We'll just move on to the next motion from Councillor McDade.
Thank you.
I got it in.
So can we get the motion? Aye. So I'll take it as read. Thank you. Council, I'm pleased to table this motion on the issue of childcare. It's my first motion I've introduced to this council and a number one issue for so many families out there in our city and district. As a working mother to 3 young children, I know too well the impact of the current childcare crisis. Before I had my children, I would never have considered that my monthly childcare bill would amount to substantially more than my mortgage, or that it would be difficult to find suitable childcare at all that suits my family. Like so many people, my husband and I have had the conversations about leaving my job or taking a career break until the kids are older. But why should I have to choose between my career and my children? Yet that's the reality facing many families, and let's face it, facing many women in particular. We see it every day in our city and district. Parents who cannot make ends meet and who've had to cut down on working hours or leave employment altogether because of childcare. We have some of the highest childcare costs in the world, and Northern Ireland still has no childcare strategy to deal with them. The parents group Melted Parents ANI have recently released results of a survey showing that over 87% of parents say the cost and availability of childcare has impacted on their career. And even more frighteningly, over 83% said that it has negatively impacted on their mental health. So the costs are a real issue. Fortunately, there is some help out there, from tax-free childcare right through to help through universal credit. However, far too few parents are aware of the support they're eligible for. According to the Employers for Childcare 2021 survey, almost a third of families are not claiming the financial support towards the cost of childcare, despite the fact most working parents are eligible for it. The same survey showed that 1 in 5 parents reported they have little or no confidence that they're accessing all the support they're entitled to. Just last week, the Department of Education's review of childcare services found evidence of limited knowledge among parents about what support was available. Parents in Derry and Strabane and across the rest of the North are being left behind and left in the dark about who can access what schemes and how they can do so. Clearly, we need to do a much better job at making this information publicly available and ensuring that all parents are aware of the support that's out there for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDade. Councillor Denny.
Just as a party and personally as a mother also, we recognise these financial burdens placed upon parents by the cost of childcare. We also understand that registered childcare providers are under strain at the minute with the rising cost of living. I agree with Councillor McDade that an advice clinic supported by Council focused on childcare and a focus on a public awareness campaign to make more parents aware of support available would be very beneficial for families in our city and district. I would be delighted to support Councillor McDade's motion. Childcare is a huge issue for workers and families and can act as a barrier to parents going to work or advancing a career, as often childcare costs eat up much of their pay, as you said, Councillor McDade. More needs to be done to cut the cost of childcare and make it affordable for parents and families. Developing a strategy to deliver this is essential and requires additional funding. Parents, families and children cannot wait any longer. Childcare providers can't wait. We need the executive now. We need ministers in place and working together to deliver better public services and to cut childcare costs for hard-pressed families. Gurmilgut.
Thank you, Councillor Denny. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for letting me on. We in the Ulster Unionist Party fully support the motion, but I would like to make an amendment or a slight addition to it. Anyway. I'm going at it from a child a care point of view. Here, one of our colleagues who looks after a few kids, she sent this here forward to me. So she says, yes, it is correct that most parents, especially new parents, don't know what they're entitled to towards support for their childcare. Many parents think they can avail of the 30 hours free childcare for 2-year-olds, but childcare providers are having to explain this is only in England at present. When a new parent makes contact, childminders are having to direct the parents to universal credits to claim childcare, with the majority getting 80% of the childcare paid for. Or if they don't get help through universal credits, then they're directed to childcare vouchers, which are people that are over the earnings threshold, and government pays so much for every pound the parents pay. At present, childminders are only allowed 6 children in their care. This includes any of their own children and of the following age groups of 3 under 5 years and 3 over 5 years. Currently, the rest of the UK are allowed up to 8 children, which includes 4 under 5s and 4 over 5s. Bringing the ratio numbers to be in line with the rest of the UK would help costs for the childcare provider, as well as parents, as fees wouldn't need to be increased due to the cost of living. The amendment, trees out sent through to you. So, I would see it's more of an addition. They write to both Departments of Education and Department of Health to request that private childcare is brought into line with the rest of the UK by increasing the ratios. Under 5 and 3 over 5 years to 4 under 5 and 4 under 5 years.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. Have you a seconder for your?
Seconded.
Thank you. Alderman Nairi McMorris, do you want to speak on both? Yep, amendment and the full, yep. No problem. So I'll just get the amendment dealt with first here and I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Alderman, or Councillor Harkin, sorry, are you happy enough to speak on both?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor McDade, for bringing the motion. I think it's the childcare crisis right now, I think, is another example of us living in a failed state. And with the rocket and mortgage rates, you know, families, I don't know how families are going to afford childcare costs. I mean, it was already very difficult for people before the mortgage rates going up and with all the cost of living pressures. What's it going to look like in September? And look, I've talked to childcare providers, as I'm sure you have yourself, and they're saying, are we going to get any help? Where's it going to come from? So look, again, this is another example of how we are treated differently here. I mean, there's a lot of talk about, like, we need to make sure that the North isn't treated differently, but like there is more help for childcare across the water. It's just a fact. And people have been campaigning for that to be changed for a long time. I think we, you know, more families are not going to be able to afford childcare, and that means that they're going to be putting the burden on the grandparents. You know, women are not going to be able to work. That's going to put more strain on the households financially, and this is the domino effect of this problem, and it's going to lead to people being excluded from working. So I think we need urgent action on it, and I know that I think that Stormont's down. We know that we need a government in place to be able to put these demands on, but I think that we, just as this motion is doing, shouldn't let the fact that Stormont is down stop us from agitating and pushing, because we have to keep the noise going, and we have to give parents that there's some hope out there, and also providers that there's going to be change coming. So we fully back the motion, and I look forward to the discussions with the different organisations that are listed in the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Does anybody else want to speak on the amendment? If not, we'll take it to a vote. All in favour? Yes. It's unanimous. Okay, I'll go back now to Alderman Nairi McMorris.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I welcome this motion brought forward. Sorry, did I miss something?
Deputy.
Deputy. Oh, sorry.
Chairman, to give the vote.
I hope I get a backhander for that. Deputy Mayor, I welcome this motion brought forward by Councillor McDade, and also the amendment by Alderman Guy. As a working parent myself, I also face the financial burden of costly childcare. In fact, it is documented that childcare here in Northern Ireland is on par with costs in central London, which is not a financially sustainable position for any parent, never mind single parents. I was disappointed to learn that almost a third of families are not claiming financial support towards the cost of childcare, even though they're eligible for this support. This, therefore, is something that needs addressed and more awareness made into the criteria for support, as a lot of parents have the perception that because they work, they are automatically not entitled to some level of support. Over 40% of parents have indicated they are forced to regularly use savings, overdrafts, credit cards and even payday loans to cover the cost of childcare. And again, this is not acceptable nor sustainable. Having previous awareness of employers for childcare and the benefits they provide to parents through their childcare voucher scheme, which entails a salary sacrifice to purchase a childcare voucher, which in turn reduces their national insurance contribution. I wholeheartedly agree that we should be encouraging employers for childcare to host family benefit advice here within the council area. This will not only raise awareness, but hopefully see a lot more families avail of financial support. I also agree that we need a childcare strategy in Northern Ireland, but also I want to see the Chancellor increase the tax-free childcare scheme. That would not only offer help to working families, but the Treasury has previously indicated that the scheme consistently underspends, and there should be room and the availability to offer more help in this area. The DUP Education Minister, before leaving office, has set the wheels in motion to ensure children aged 3 to 4 have access to a minimum of 22.5 hours of funded preschool education per week. That is a work in progress, and we want to see more done to help families with childcare costs. Therefore, it is our party goal to see 30 hours of free childcare for every family. In light of all this information, we fully support the motion today. Thank you. And I suppose I look forward to hearing how the DUP is responsible for it all. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Alderman Mary McMorris. Any other speakers? No, I'll pass back to you, Councillor McDade, to sum up.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody for the support and the motion. I would agree with Councillor Deaney. I think we're probably in similar situations, and I would agree completely with what you're saying. We need a full functioning proper childcare strategy. I know Sinead McLaughlin, MLA for SDLP, has been lobbying through the all-party group on early education and childcare for something to be put in place as soon as possible. The reality is we do need an executive back up and running for it. I'll not say anything more about that. We do need it. And we would be fighting for an ambitious strategy of 30 hours, minimum 30 hours free childcare for all children up to age 5, not just preschool, right up until primary school. But in the meantime, I think from a point of view of council, we're not going to be able to fix that here. What we can do is make sure that all parents are aware of the support they can get, so we can try and reduce the costs for them. So then as well, actually, that they're able to afford it, and the childcare providers are able to keep stay in work and continue to provide the service that they do provide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDade, I haven't heard nobody speak against or anything of that nature, so we'll take it that's unanimous, yes? Happy enough. Well done, Councillor McDade, in your first motion. Well done. Okay, moving on to Councillor Sandra Duffy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Motion's on the screen. Just get a seconder. Yep. Okay, thank you again. I would like to just begin by passing on my sincerest condolences to the family and friends of Chloe Mitchell. And I would like to thank the Mayor, who's had to leave, for opening the book of condolences last week. The horrific murder of Chloe Mitchell is a tragic reminder of the devastating impact that misogyny and violence against women continues to have in our society. One death is too many, but Chloe was the 18th woman to be brutally murdered across the north since 2020. And indeed, Women's Aid reports that there is an incident of domestic violence every 16 minutes. I did intend today, as part of my speaking notes, to name the women and their stories. But a search on the internet led me to an article in the Irish Times last year entitled Stolen Lives. And it actually named, with personal stories, of 239 women across Ireland who have been brutally murdered since 1996. I would really recommend that people read it, and if they're in any doubt about the level of misogyny and the impact of gender-based violence within our society, they will get their eyes opened. It was an absolutely appalling and heartbreaking article, and it is completely unacceptable that these incidents continue to take place in a supposedly civilised society. There needs to be zero tolerance approach to all gender-based violence, but also to the misogynistic nature and culture and attitudes that drive it and normalise it across our society. But to do that, we need a comprehensive multi-departmental strategy in place that is ambitious and properly resourced. It is welcome that the Executive's planned Ending Violence Against Women and Girls strategy is expected to go out for public consultation in the near future, but it is also vital, however, that we have an Executive in place as soon as possible, with a Minister who is driving it forward for implementation. Women and girls cannot wait any longer. We need an Executive in place now to prioritise this work. We can't continue to wring our hands and offer sympathy. But again, just to finish up, I want to offer my heartfelt condolences and solidarity to Chloe's family and friends at what is a really traumatic time for them. So thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy, on what is a brilliant motion to be bringing, especially after the tragic death of Chloe. We'll move on now to Councillor Lillian Barrett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sandra, for bringing that motion. It is such a vital issue to discuss, and it's just horrific to read of the case of Chloe. And you're also right that it's too many women, too many mothers, and it's something that for every woman, for every man, it is difficult to even to contemplate that we will be talking about violence against women now in 2023 and don't have a strategy to deal with it. I was grateful for the unanimous support of the Health and Communities Committee last week on the motion to write to the Prime Minister asking him to publish the violence against women strategy in the absence of a functioning government. I'm also grateful and want to thank the Mayor for opening the book of condolences. It is crucial that we all stand in solidarity with Chloe's family, but also with all the families that have lost their loved one because of violence against women. The motion is absolutely correct that we need the violence against women and girls strategy to be delivered, but we also need it to crucially be funded. A strategy that sits on the shelf gathering dust or comes with no funding attached would be a slap in the face to the victims and the betrayal of the severity of this issue. That funding should include measures to tackle the deeply rooted misogyny that exists in our society. And we need to change the way we view, the way we talk, and about the way we treat women in our society. And the SDLP will be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barr, Councillor Leonard.
One of my August, I was Councillor Duffy for bringing forward this motion. Just want to speak as and offer me sincere condolences to Chloe's family. Speak as a brother of a girl who was murdered 6 years ago. Was very, very recently just sat through 2 weeks of a coroner's court case. I strongly support the motion that Councillor Duffy has brought forward. I welcome the recent legislation there has been about coercive control and the stalker legislation, etc. And welcome that this strategy will hopefully be coming out for consultation very soon. Do you know, domestic violence, coercive control knows absolutely no boundaries. No boundaries. And I really don't want to make a political point out of this, but I'm going to say this. I'd encourage the party who's holding back the executive, not going into the executive at the minute, if it's for no other reason, please have a think about how this, going back in and getting this strategy passed could protect women and girls. As I say, domestic violence, coercive control knows absolutely no boundaries.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leonard, and very well spoken. I'm sure it wasn't easy, especially with somebody very closely affected by that. Thank you. Alderman Cook.
Thank you, Deputy, for letting me in. So I welcome the motion put forward by Councillor Duffy, and I want to express our sincere condolences to all of Chloe's family, circle and friends. Yet another attack on a woman. So I concur with what the other speakers were saying, and I feel that the end of violence against women and girls strategy is definitely something that needs action. And as a young woman myself, I feel that it is vital that women should feel safe when going out and they should not have to worry about being a target for men. And I just want to also thank the Mayor for opening the book of condolences as well for Chloe. And just a wee statistic that stood out to me, I as well looked into it a wee bit, you know, after reading the motion. And on the Women's Aid website, a woman is killed every other month in Northern Ireland who are involved in a domestic violence relationship. And I do feel quite strongly about it. So we as a party fully support this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alderman Cook. Councillor Harkin.
Yeah. Thank you to Councillor Duffy for bringing forward this motion, and it's a very important one, and People Before Profit support it, and we also send our condolences to the family and friends of Chloe Mitchell. And as other speakers have said, this happens all too often. I mean, it's not for the North has been described as the most dangerous place for women in Europe, and it's because of the number of murders, and it's because of our domestic violence, levels, and it's shocking and it's unacceptable. And we do need to have a strategy to deal with this. We have to challenge misogyny from, go at the roots, and it has to be right across all levels of society, starting with the youngest, ending with the oldest. And we have to create an environment where, this is just unacceptable. And I think growing numbers of people do think it's unacceptable and want to see it changed. And just look, this is not like when you think about, the statistic about the North and about levels of violence towards women, and then this just strategy of the DFI to throw up on their website that they're going to turn out the lights for 3 months, from January to March, right? I just think there's just a lack of thinking through, because I've had people say to me, what message does that send in terms of how is that's going to put fear into people that there's going to be no street lights anywhere? And it's so unthought through, and this is the problem with misogyny, and that it works at that level, and we have to challenge that. And obviously we need a government that leads in that, and that's not happening right now, but that needs to change.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Donnelly.
Good, Chair, and a lot of what needed to be said has already been said. I think the 6 counties has been named as one of the most dangerous places for women in Europe, and that's not something that's embarrassing. It's ridiculous, and I agree with Councillor Harkin that we need to eradicate that people at a young age, children. That's where we need to instill that misogyny or violence, against women is completely wrong. But I think that we also need to take on board cuts to women's services, cuts to like the Derry Women's Centre, and our women's groups, which are doing sterling work in picking up the pieces of this failed statelet, where they're at the at the coalface and dealing with issues as councillors. I'm sure there's not a councillor or an alderman in here that hasn't had somebody come to them and who has experienced, a woman that has experienced that type of violence and threats. So I think the people who are picking up the pieces and are trying to deal with it have they decimate them services and lose jobs only adds fuel to a fire which is already out of control. But happy to support the motion and commend Councillor Duffy for bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. Alderman Guy.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And we in the Ulster Unionist Party fully support the motion brought by Councillor Duffy. I'm not going to say much. It hasn't already been said in here tonight. My own family member suffered at the hands of coercive abuse. So it was great to see that when they actually brought through the bill to deal with coercive abuse and make it illegal, that she was lucky enough. Others weren't so lucky. But I'd just like to pass all my condolences to the Chloe Mitchell's family. I think we've all taken it on board. I have 2 daughters, and I very much brought it home to me about how vulnerable young girls are. And as Councillor Harkin says about the DFI talking about turning out the lights, how many random attacks are we facing already? How many more would we face if they turn out the lights on young girls walking home at night? It's hard enough to get a taxi in this town, never mind them walking home in the dark. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Guy. I don't see any other indicated speakers, so I'll pass back to Councillor Sandra Duffy to sum up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you to everyone across the chamber for their support. I think just in terms of this issue, I don't think that there is a woman or a girl in this chamber or any that I have talked to that haven't thought about their route home, haven't thought about how they're walking, haven't thought about ponytails, haven't thought about having keys in their hand for protection. These are things that my two daughters. I wish didn't have to think about it at this stage, but unfortunately we're still in a society where these are the dangers and these are the issues that they face. I thank everybody for their support for the motion. I would like to pay particular thanks to Councillor Leonard. I have had conversations with Councillor Leonard before, and the pain can't feel it from the conversations. We do have a responsibility hugely to do everything that we can to eradicate misogyny, to eradicate toxic masculinity, and to ensure that women are safe to go about their daily business and end gender-based violence. Thank you for your support.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duffy. I'm pretty sure there's nobody against us. We're all in favour. Yes, that's unanimous. Councillor Duffy. So folks, that concludes the motion. So we're now going to move on to item number 16, which is open for information. Anybody on item 16, responses to motions? Councillor Boggs.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. First of all, page 285, Appendix 23, the response from Royal Mail. Just to ask, or to propose maybe, there are issues at talks in there about the review of delivery rounds. Obviously, it's welcome that there are no redundancies or no loss of staff in either Strabane or the Derg. But there are issues that have come from that review of the delivery rounds. I spoke to somebody yesterday who received a letter in relation to the election, who received a postal proxy notification that was dated the 5th of May. He received that on Monday. So there are other issues of parcels and all the rest. I understand that's within the response that we have in front of us, but I can make a proposal that we go back to Royal Mail to ask them, is there any chance that they could give us some feedback on how that review has impacted service and whether it has benefited it or not?
That shouldn't be a problem. You a seconder for that? Councillor Jackson, that'll be action. Yep. Councillor Heaney.
Thanks, Chair. Just I'm not looking to prolong the meeting at all, but it's just too important an issue not to comment on. It's just about the response from the British Immigration Minister in relation to the proposal to bring in a visa system next year. You know, the response is totally pathetic in my view. Like, this risks the tourist industry that is just starting to grow in this city. People can't fail to notice the amount of tourists that are here at the minute, particularly, I suppose, from America. But the reality is, if this system was in place and people were being asked to apply for a visa and pay for it, that many of those tourists wouldn't be here. So it's a huge issue, and that's the reason I felt we had to mention it here. I know it was raised at the British Irish Council meeting. It was raised at the North West Regional Development Group, but it needs to be opposed totally by every means that we can to ensure that it doesn't wreck everything that's been built up in the short while. So I'm not going to make a proposal, but I would ask that the Mayor consider leading a delegation from the city and from the district council area to voice the absolute opposition to this. So, for
no problem. Thank you, Councillor Heaney. Councillor Riley online.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. It's the same issue as Councillor Heaney has just spoken about, and to agree with his comments in relation to the concerns that our council rightly have at this item. You know, I know from the pack that's there in front of us that the correspondence dates back to around the 24th of April. You know, so things have moved on since then. There has been you know, some commentary in the public domain about all of this. The British Irish Parliamentary Association also have been raising the issue, and I think that the council should do, as Councillor Heaney has indicated, that the Mayor should reach out and make representations on this. But I think also the council should hear from the likes of Visit Derry, the likes of the Northern Ireland Tourist Board, Tourism NI, to hear what their concerns are and whether they are having any any joy in getting the British Immigration Home Office to hear what are the valid concerns of people living here. There's also risk for our council. Like, we operate a huge number of festivals throughout the year. Many of those festivals draw in people from across the island and indeed across the globe. If you think about Halloween, so there are concerns about how asking people to pay for a waiver to come into the country is going to end up discouraging them from coming to our festivals, our events, and supporting our
Can I
local
ask you to bring
businesses.
your remarks to a close, please?
So happy, Chair, with the direction of travel on this, but it is something that we need to continue to make representations on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Alderman Hussey has the same issue? No?
Yeah, it's just back to the Royal Mail issue. You'll remember that kicked off from issues that were emanating in the Castleberg area. But as the letter is explaining there, it's been sort of brought into the wider Strabane area. And although they say there have been no redundancies, I think the issue is really about level of service as opposed to staffing. And the other issue is they say no redundancies, but I'm wondering, have there been any voluntary severances that we're aware of? And I suspect there are less postmen on the ground. So, there's a use of words there, which I'd be concerned about and would want to know, are the same number of Royal Mail delivery personnel on the ground in Strabane, Castleberg, wider area or not?
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Harkin, just before Maureen, was it the same issue? No?
Different issue.
Different issue, no problem. Councillor Boyle.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll keep it short. Well, look, just before this meeting, in fact, actually, I was about half an hour late. And the reason I was half an hour late was because I was actually coming from the Visit Derry board meeting. My first sitting on the Visit Derry board meeting, actually, in 5 years or whatever it happened to be. This was a hot topic this afternoon at that board meeting, this ETA, or as the Americans would call it, an ESTA. There's very, very real concern. And I agree with Councillor Heaney. The response from Robert Jenrick MP is pathetic, I think is the word you used, and it's absolutely correct. It's the right word to use because it doesn't recognise the very specific differences on this island. And it doesn't recognise that the international tourist doesn't sometimes recognise this as a partitioned island, if you want, for want of a better way of putting it. There are tourists who land here in Dublin and they don't actually realise that we have two currencies on this island. For example, to us, you would imagine that would be a fairly straightforward thing that people would know. It's incredible the number of people that you actually meet who actually don't know that. Simple as that. This is going to pose a real challenge for the tourism industry as things progress. And I'm completely in agreement with Councillor Heaney. We can facilitate the meetings that we need to do as a council that represent the border area. And we obviously do have that cross-border relationship with our sister council in Donegal as well. And we should be doing that. And if it's through the mayor's office, then that's the way, if that's the direction of travel, I know that we obviously will support that direction of travel. But it's got a real potential to put the mockers on us, as for want of a better way of putting it. We've got a new hotel open in this city next Friday. I wish them well, I'm sure we all do. But this is the kind of thing that could put some businesses like that, even businesses like that, to the wall. So we need to get out there, I'm sure we all agree, and support our tourism sector, because it really is a sector that we have seen grow. And I want us all to see that continue. So, Deputy Mayor, I'll leave it there, and thanks for letting me in again.
Very much. Councillor Boyle, on a separate issue now, Councillor Norris.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's just a response to the Muff Glen Bridge, the motion that I raised. A welcome response from Katrina Godfrey, the Permanent Secretary of DAERA. And she talks now that the commitment now to reinstalling the bridge, which we really will be delighted with, the people who use it after 6 years of waiting for it. In the letter, it talks about meeting with council officials. Has that meeting taken place yet, or has it been scheduled? Thank you.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I actually think the meeting has taken place, but I don't have the director here, so I'll get that clarified. But I'm fairly sure it has taken place.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Councillor Norris. Councillor Harkin.
Yeah, Mayor, sorry, Deputy Mayor. I don't want to prolong the meeting, but we have a response to our call to the Department of Education to reinstate the school holiday food grants. And obviously the response is very, very disappointing. And the reason why I want to just get it recorded in the discussion is, look, families lost what is termed the holiday hunger payments over Easter. That was a couple of weeks. Now we're looking at the whole of the summer, and this is going to be a massive, massive hit for a lot of families. And I think that the issue of all the cuts to children and education has been highlighted over the last couple of days. But I think we'll have to, not now, but when we get the opportunity, we have to come back and we have to keep pushing the department on this, because this is it's just a very disappointing response. And I heard the permanent secretary on the radio yesterday saying cutting the holiday hunger food payments is one of the hardest decisions he's ever made. But nevertheless, he's done it, and it hasn't been reversed despite the clamour. So look, this is, we are living in a very, very much a failed state right now.
Thank you, Councillor Harkin. Councillor Donnelly.
Very well, Chair, and it's a spin-off of Councillor Harkin's issue. I've recently found out that when people who are struggling put in for a debt relief order, that if they owe money to Apex or Dairy Credit Union, that both organisations oppose the debt relief order. Both these organisations have a connection with our local food bank, and I think that it's an absolute disgrace. How can you oppose a debt relief order on a struggling, someone who's struggling, a family, and then be seen associated with local food bank when you're actually contributing to the problem? And I wonder if it would be acceptable if this council could write to the food bank and ask them to consider the connection between both organisations, because that they, in my opinion, by opposing the debt relief orders, are contributing to the poverty situation in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly, but I would rather that came forward as a notice of motion for July, if that's okay. Thank you. Anybody else on the item 16 response to motions? No. We'll move on to item number 17 then, resolutions from other councils. No. Number 18, item number 18, meeting list. No. And is there any other relevant items, John? No. Folks, that concludes it. Thank you very much. Bid you all a good evening.